Thank you so much for joining with us today as we continue our series on body language, which is all about our prayer life. So last week we were exploring what is prayer, and today I've got the small task of answering the question, how to pray. If we haven't met before, my name is Stephen, and we're going to start off by just getting right into the text. It's from Matthew 6, and it'll be a passage probably familiar to lots of you already. So I'm going from verse 5 in Matthew 6. It says this, "And whenever you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, so that they may be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward. But whenever you pray, go into your room, shut the door, and pray to your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. When you are praying, don't heap up empty phrases as the Gentiles do, for they think that they'll be heard because of their many words. Don't be like them, for your Father knows what you need even before you ask. Pray then in this way. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. And do not bring us to the time of trial, but rescue us from the evil one." It's a topic, how to pray, that probably wherever you are at your faith journey, or whether you would even consider to be a follower of Jesus at all, will all have something to say about the topic of prayer. In fact, it was Einstein who was reputed to have said, there's only two ways to live your life. Whether the one way is to think that nothing is a miracle, and the other is to think that everything is a miracle. If it's the former, then we're travelling through space on this ball of rock in some sort of meaningless experience of life. Or the latter option, that everything's a miracle, that there's a God behind it all, a creator, a sustainer, a God of love who made you and put all the good within you. Now, if it's the second of those options, then surely prayer must be one of the most earth-shatteringly brilliant things to do, to engage heaven and earth together by speaking out and listening to our Maker and our Creator. In fact, I think that sort of partnership is what Jesus really talks about when he says, "Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." And I think that sort of partnership is not just standalone in Matthew 6 there, but rather is embedded through the scriptures. From page 1 of the Bible, Adam and Eve walk in partnership with God. God desired for his creative purposes to be lived out through his creation as Adam and Eve became his image bearers into the world. But even after the fall, when Adam and Eve separated themselves from God, God also pursued his creation in finding ways to engage with it. We see the establishing of the tabernacle and the temple, these holy hotspots where heaven and earth joined together for mankind to be inspired by the God of all creation. And of course, in the life of Jesus, we see heaven and earth united. Jesus would say, "If you've seen me, well, you've seen the Father." And I've been staggered just recently by the prayer of Jesus in John 17, in his kind of darkest hour, journeying through that kind of Holy Week, coming to the Garden of Gethsemane. He prays this incredible prayer in chapter 17 of John. And it's a prayer that blows me away because in my darkest moment, the last person I'm thinking about is anyone other than myself. I would be praying purely for myself, I think. But Jesus does pray for himself, but then prays for two others. He prays for his disciples, his immediate followers, and then for all who would believe. That's us. And this is the prayer that he prays. It blows me away. He says, "As you, Father, are in me, and I in you, may they, everyone who believes, may they be one in us. I find that just mind-blowing, the fact that that same relationship that Father and Son experience, that oneness, that togetherness of heaven and earth joined together, that's what he wants for us, that partnership to engage with God's creative purposes in the world around us. It was the theologian Bosch who said, it's the God of mission who has a church, not the other way around. It's not the church of God who has a great idea to reach the world, but rather it's the God of mission already at work through all of creation. It's up to us to work out what he's up to and for us to get involved. And if that resonates with you, then surely our prayer life is something that we want to really work at, to grow at, to be creative with, to go to new places and new depths with. And so I hope today, as we think very practically about what prayer can look like, that you'll have a few things to take away to try out for yourself. There's going to be a few points in this video that you might want to just hit pause and reflect for yourself. And my first question for you, where you might want to hit pause and do that, is this: how content are you already with your prayer life? If you were to rate that from maybe a 0 to a 5, how happy are you with your prayer life? Perhaps you're feeling just distracted or bored or disengaged or not feeling very encouraged with it. Or maybe you're smashing it and just being able to do what Paul says, pray without ceasing. You've found a way to have that kind of prayerful walk through your entire life. I wonder where you are at the spectrum. Wherever you are, I hope that today we're able to just go a little bit deeper, have some ways to maybe move from a 1 to a 2 or a 0 to a 1 or a 4 to a 5 on that kind of self-reflection. Now, in the life of Renewal, no expense is ever spared when it comes to visual aids, and today is no exception. So we really forked out on the budget this week, as the visual aid for us today is a teaspoon. Yeah, that is as good as it's getting. If you're squinting from your sofa at home and wondering what on earth is that, it must be more than that. No, it's just a teaspoon. I'm sorry about that. The budget just didn't really stretch. But the teaspoon is going to help us have some sort of shape to today's message. And it's an acronym that I came across from the former Archbishop of York, John Sentry, who had this way of praying. I've changed it very slightly just to soup it up a little bit for today's purposes. But we're going to use this acronym: A or A, T, S, and P. So if you're not a baker and you're not sure what a tusp is, well, it's a teaspoon. It's a shortened version of teaspoon, which bakers will be well familiar with, but they all mean something. So the A is for adoration, adoration in our prayers. The T is for thankfulness. The S is for sorry, and the P is for please. And again, you might want to just pause the video and have a little self-reflect and think, where do I gravitate to on these 4 letters in my prayers? If I had to just choose one of them or rank these, I wonder which one we would gravitate more to. Perhaps it's thankfulness would be top of the list, like you're really regular in your thanksgiving and gratitude to God. Perhaps it's saying please and asking God for things. I wonder which it is for you. But I think maybe just touching on each of these helps to bring a rounded picture to our prayer life. So adoration, it comes from the Latin meaning just to worship. And I wonder whether you have ever adored somebody or something. In the Lord's Prayer that we read just a few minutes ago, Jesus says, "Our Father in heaven, hallowed or holy is your name." I remember when I was dating my wife, Sarah, I adored her from day one. And I remember this one day we were walking through Dovedale in the Peak District, beautiful day, one of those kind of spring days where it actually feels warm and you're coming out of the depths of winter. And we had a nice day walking along, had a little picnic, ice cream, kind of watching the world go by, and just alongside a river. And I thought this was my moment, so I leant him, whispered in her ear these words, "I love you." Yeah, I know, the proper romantic, I know you're all very impressed. But there's a moment of awkward silence that followed. It was one of those silences that just seemed to go on for a lifetime. And I thought, oh, maybe I've come on a little bit too strong here. But she leant back in and she whispered into my ear these words. She said, "Steve, I really like you too." And my world was kind of shattered in that moment as I realised there was some kind of disconnect between my level of adoration for her and maybe some more work to do to win her over on the other side. But I wonder whether you've ever been in those moments where you've absolutely adored someone. You know, kind of get this question occasionally kind of through life or through church, something like, when you get to heaven, what are you going to ask God? And I've kind of got news for you today, because you're not going to ask anything. You're like, what? Why is that? You're going to be so overwhelmed with the beauty and the brightness and the greatness of who God is. You're just going to be lost for words. There's a song that says, "I'm lost in wonder, I'm lost in praise forevermore because of his great love." I've been looking recently at kind of those interactions that man has had in heavenly places. And in all of those, men are just kind of lost for words. I was looking at Ezekiel 1, whole page of detailed description of this heavenly throne room. And it kind of goes into so much description, and it just finishes with this line in verse 28. It says of Ezekiel, "When I saw it, I fell face down and I heard the voice of someone behind me." It's just this kind of real stark step change in this writing, where this great descriptive passage of what heaven is like, and the only response that Ezekiel can give is to fall face down, overcome in adoration for what he is amongst. It's the same for John in the book of Revelation, as he has this vision of Christ. And there the language is even stronger. It says in Revelation 1:17, "When I saw him," that's Christ, "I fell at his feet as though dead." It's the same for Isaiah, as he again has this vision of the heavenly throne room. He sees the seraphim and the angels and this incredible descriptive passage, and he says, "Woe to me, I'm a man of unclean lips." There was something so glorious that it was almost like he didn't belong in that place. And I wonder when the last time was where you perhaps didn't have a heavenly vision like those characters we've just described, but you're overcome in wonder and praise and adoration for our God. I don't know where you feel closest to God. I wonder whether it's like a particular chair you like to sit on, or your bedroom, or perhaps you like to walk when you pray, or perhaps it's just being on a mountain. I don't know where it is where you feel closest to God. Maybe a thin place, a sacred place where heaven and earth just feel a little bit closer together. For me, we've got a busy home life. I've got 3 young children. Your prayers are most welcome. The house is busy. We're up early. We're going to bed like absolutely exhausted. So sometimes it feels like really difficult to just find that kind of so-called quiet time. And I've found just walking and get a snatch in 30 minutes here or there to just go for a walk, nowhere amazingly beautiful, just like round the block, is really helpful for me to be able to focus my mind and to pray in more meaningful way. And I was walking just recently, and it was a clear night, and I could see the stars, and just kind of overcome once again by the beauty of creation. And I was reminded of Psalm 8 that says, "When I look at the heavens, and the work of your hands, the sun and moon that you have established. What is man that you are mindful of him? Mere mortals that you should care for them, yet you've placed them a little lower than the angels. And I remember times in the scriptures where the stars and the constellations are referenced. Job, one of the oldest characters in the Bible, talks of the bear and Pleiades and Orion and Orion's belt and things like that. And I realized that they're the same constellations that I'm looking at today. They haven't changed. And I think for me it spoke of like the timelessness of God, the transcendence of God. Thousands of years have passed, and yet he's unshakable and unchanging. But yet he's intimate, and he wants to reach into my life and use my life and partner with my life, that I might be something like his hands and feet in the world. It kind of blew me away in that moment. But I wonder where your great spaces are to be close to God, for that the opportunity for adoration. I was reading a story just recently from almost 1,000 years ago of a wealthy Italian lawyer who heard about this young man, Giovanni. He was 25 years old. He'd recently left the army, and he'd just given up everything for the poor. And this wealthy lawyer, he was really interested to kind of find out more, like what's motivated, what's possessed him to do this? He's got his whole life ahead of him. Why would he do that? So bearing in mind this is like 11th, 12th century, I can't quite remember the exact date, but this lawyer invited Giovanni to come and stay at his house. And he thought, you know what, I'm going to spy on him while he's here. And he set up like a peephole to be able to see into Giovanni's bedroom. And he was overcome by what he recognized in Giovanni. Giovanni knelt in his room, tears pouring down his face, and he repeated just this very simple phrase: my God and my all. My God and my all. My God and my all. And this wealthy chap was so impressed by this all-consuming love that Giovanni had for his maker and Lord and Master, that he actually copied him. He gave up everything that he had and became his very first disciple. And within a year, there was 11 others. And within a decade, there was more than 5,000. And within 20 years, the course of European history had been realigned by the joyous life and simple teaching of Francis of Assisi, as Giovanni is better known. What incredible impact the life of St. Francis had. And it was rooted in this adoration for the living God, that simple prayer, my God, my all, this recognition that everything I have is because of him. Every good and perfect gift comes down from the Father of lights, in whom there's no shadow or variation or turning, as James would say. So I wonder for you, your adoration. When was the last time you showed adoration to God? When was the last time you found that quiet place, that place of closeness with God? When was the last time you opened up your heart to him and gave him that all-consuming adoration that he so deserves? Let's move on to the T. T is for thankfulness. Adoration, A, T, thankfulness. I wonder whether you are a little bit like me, and sometimes life just feels so fast that our prayers of thankfulness are somewhat just a little bit repetitive, and maybe in the words of Jesus there, we kind of heap up empty phrases. Lord, thank you for this day, thank you for my health, thank you for my job, thank you for my family, thank you that I've got a roof over my head. And it becomes just a little bit normal, a little bit repetitive. I think we have to kind of slow down to really think about what we are genuinely thankful for. Anne Lamott, this little quote I came across recently, it says, almost everything works better if you unplug it for a while, including you. Our lives are so fast paced. We've got devices pinging up all the time. Notification, that's going on. That needs to be sorted. We're almost like overstimulated as a society. And so it's so countercultural to go, I want to unplug myself a little bit. I want to put that aside so I can actually slow down. I learned so much from my own children who just have like a different pace. Sometimes it is fast, but so often with little children, there's a lack of awareness of time, which can be so frustrating sometimes, but really beautiful as well. I get lost in moments. When I walk my little girl is 18 months old, and we walked the last bit of the school run to go and fetch my kids, and it's like the slowest walk ever. She's distracted by everything, you know, the little leaf, the bit of filthy stones on the floor, the bit of dog. No, I won't go there. But she's distracted by everything, and it's like, just love this kind of lack of urgency. How wonderful would it be to be like that? It's the same with my slightly older children. They're 8 and 5, and we see, you know, like a rainbow in the sky, and they're just lost in wonder for a few moments. And you get loads of questions, you know, Daddy, how's it made? Where's it come from? Is the gold at the bottom of it? Can we go and find it? You know, all these kind of questions. And I have to learn from that, because so often I'm like, oh, we've got to go, we've got to pick that thing up, or we need to, or someone's texting me, or we need to organize that. And it's just kind of busy. But to be truly thankful, a bit like those, that silly little example of the children, maybe we just need to slow down and just awe and wonder at what God's done for us, who He is, what He's up to in our life and in the lives of those around us, to be truly thankful. I'm slightly frustrated by the Lord's Prayer, dare I say it, is that it doesn't actually mention thankfulness. Kind of surprising. I don't know whether you ever noticed that. But I'm kind of thinking that maybe thankfulness is just a given to all of it. And I think it's maybe almost like the ethos or the thread through each of these 4 letters that we're looking at, or through this whole prayer. Because, you know, can you adore somebody without first being thankful for them? Can you say sorry to that person if you're not kind of thankful that maybe there's going to be forgiveness in a loving, merciful God? And can you say please for anything if there's like not that expectation that God's already supplied so much that you are grateful for? I think it's kind of implicit through all of these ideas that we're sharing today. And you might be thinking, well, why do I need to be thankful? What's kind of God getting out of that? And I think maybe it's a principle that changes one person in the relationship between you and God, and it's not God. Thankfulness doesn't change God. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever, but rather having an attitude of gratitude, which is kind of a hashtag, which, I cringe by even saying it, but kind of having that attitude of thankfulness, it actually elevates us up and out of whatever's going on in our life. It gives us a new perspective as we remember the God who made us, the God who loved us, the God who's purposed us, the God who's done so much already through us and through the world around us. It takes our perspective up. I think there's 2 ways we can live our lives with God. We can either go kind of bottom up, we can take our situation, we can have a good day or a bad day and reflect that onto God. And we can go, God, it's been great. Thank you so much. Really great day today. Or we can go, oh, do you know what? Life's really hard. God, why are you making it so hard for me? You know, why is there so much suffering going on? And we take our kind of basic understanding, our experiences, and project them up. I think more of a biblical way to live is to go top down. And I think Mary does this brilliantly. Be a part of scripture you may be familiar with, but as Mary is told that she's going to have the Messiah, she goes and visits her cousin Elizabeth, and then we get this prayer, this song actually. It's called, it's kind of been coined the Magnificat. And in that prayer, she says, my spirit, let me get it right because I'm going to, because I don't want to misquote it. My soul magnifies the Lord. It magnifies the Lord. It makes him bigger. Not my situation, but makes him bigger. And my spirit rejoices in God, my Saviour. She's going in a very like, must have been so confusing, so worrying, so many unanswered questions in that moment for her, but she chooses to put her attention on the Lord. And if you read the rest of that song, she starts just thank God and elevate God in her own thinking for the character of who God is, and also what he's done in her life and what he's going to do through her life. And so she elevates herself. So thankfulness doesn't really change God, I don't think, but brings us into a closer place with him as we realize once again the joy of being in fellowship with him, heaven and earth coming together. So I wonder for you what you are thankful for. I mean, like, really thankful for. Perhaps you want to pause this video again and just scribble down those things that you're really grateful for. Let's head into the third element. We had adoration, we had thankfulness, and now we're into sorry. I don't know how highly ranked this element came in your own prayer life, but to say sorry, I think, is within this Lord's Prayer that we read. Jesus would say, forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Lead us not into temptation. We've recently celebrated Easter. We had this wonderful, glorious end to Easter as we celebrate the resurrection. But so easily we kind of whiz through Holy Week and move swiftly from Good Friday to Easter Sunday. And I don't really blame us, because the horror of Good Friday is something that is hard to reconcile with. The tragedy of God's own Son being crucified, tortured, murdered on our behalf is somewhere where we're only comfortable to dwell just for a few moments. And we want to make sense of that. We want to know the end of the story, what the disciples didn't have the joy of having at the time. We want to kind of get through to Resurrection Sunday, the victory of life over death. But I think as Christians, we need to kind of get comfortable with Good Friday and Easter Saturday and Easter Sunday as that whole experience of living in communion with God. Paul would say it like this. He'd say, I have been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now walk in the flesh, I walk by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. You see, as Christians, we kind of recognize that just as Good Friday showed humanity at its very worst, you know, this gross injustice, this targeting of a scapegoat, this focusing on the marginalised and crucifying of those that just make humanity just feel uncomfortable or not belong. We kind of recognise that all of that, but also when we reflect on our own lives, we don't have to stare too deeply in the mirror to see that a lot of those darker sides are not that far away in our own lives. We don't have to look too far to see poor choices, poor attitudes, poor beliefs sometimes, poor ways of living out our life. And maybe just as Paul, we need to kind of keep coming back to going, you know what, Jesus, you took my place. It should have been me. Maybe being not comfortable, but fully aware of that brokenness that Jesus experienced and is also daily in my own life. I remember as a young adult, just trying to work out what is God's will for my life. I do that because we talk about that quite a lot. What does He want me to do? Who does He want me to marry one day? And where does He want me to live? And what career does He want me to do? Lord, just tell me the way. You can have those moments of frustration. But it's at that kind of stage in my life that I kind of stepped it up in terms of following Jesus and wanted to make it more of a personal faith for myself. And I had my world rocked by Romans 12, which would say, in view of God's mercies, live your life as a living sacrifice. Like a daily awareness that without Him, I'm nothing, but with Him, I'm everything. A daily awareness of recognizing those things that are not healthy, that's not helpful, and bringing them into the light. It goes on to say, then you will know what is perfect and pleasing will is for you. And it goes on to say in other elements of Romans, would say that His will for you is to be conformed unto His image. That's it. Everything else flows from that. Seek first His kingdom, and all these things will be added unto you. The first thing, and maybe the last thing, is to be conformed to His image. That involves Good Friday, Easter Saturday, where we perhaps need to keep laying those things down, keep burying those things that surface, and the joy of the victory of life over death in Resurrection Sunday too. I've just finished a book by Selena Stone called Tarry a While. It was kind of the big church read this year through the period of Lent. Really enjoyed it, and there was just one little anecdote, image that she conjures up when she's speaking around contemplative prayer or silent prayer. And she gives this kind of image of, you know what it's like when you have somebody to come for dinner, and you clean the house, don't you? You kind of like hoover around, you make sure there's no like dirty dishes out, clean the toilet, of course, nobody wants to be seeing anything in there, of course. You might even dust the skirting boards or something like that, just in case your visitor goes on a very close inspection of the skirting boards. I don't know what your visitors are like. I've never had anybody do that in my house, pleased to say. But you tidy the spaces where you're going to be. Yeah, you tidy the kitchen, the dining room, maybe where you're going to eat, maybe the lounge, wherever you're going to be. So imagine your friend comes over, lovely dinner, great stuff, and then this visitor then says, I'd love to have a tour of the house. You're like, yeah, no problem. Well, here's the dining room, this is where we've been, and here's the kitchen, and yeah, we're going to go to the lounge later. And then they say, oh, do you know what? Can I see upstairs as well? And so you're kind of okay, and just kind of quickly whizzing through the brain, which areas am I okay to show off here? And you take your visitor upstairs to go and look reluctantly into some other spaces, and you think, okay, I know that bedroom's okay, so we'll look in there, and hopefully they'll be satisfied. And so you show them that room, and it's okay, and then they say, no, I want to see all the rooms. I want to see the loft. I want to see the garage. I want to see the shed, if you've got one. And you have that moment of going, oh man, the things that I've put on show here is not good enough. And I wonder for you, and I wonder for I, which of those rooms that we've just shut the door on to God's illuminating work? Which are the spaces that are securely shut because I'm not going to bring those things into the light? Perhaps a value you hold, or an attitude that is there. Something deep and inward that causes bitterness to rise up, or anger to surface. Where are the areas of your life where you need to once again come back to Good Friday, come back to Easter Saturday, and lay those things down, to open some doors, to bring in some air, to bring in some light, to have a sort out, and allow the power of God's Holy Spirit to work alongside you in that. We've had adoration, thankfulness, sorry, and we're going to land with please. Jesus teaches us, your kingdom come, your will be done. And he also says, give us today our daily bread. You know, my own prayers, my own please prayers at time are just prayers of like urgency. You know, please help this day go well. Please help my kids do well in school. Please help me to sleep well tonight. Please help me with that big work project that I've got coming up. And they just kind of fired up. And I think God, you know, as majestic as he is, there's also this intimate walk that we can have with him. Good prayer, I think, does both of those things really well. And in fact, our kids in Renewal Kids are taught to chat and to catch, to chat about, like, just get used to talking to God about the mundane, the everyday, sometimes the silly, and to almost catch back what the Spirit might be saying. Like, what amazing things to be teaching 4, 5, through to whatever age year olds. It's like so brilliant to be encouraging that intimate, close walking relationship. But I also wonder whether we can do even better than that. And this year, as we've been looking at Ephesians, I don't know whether you're a bit like me, but I've been just like blown away by the way that Paul chooses to pray. I mean, it's like a heavenly language sometimes, and it's something that you have to like slow down to read and actually absorb a little bit more. And he prays this in chapter 1 as he's praying for this church in Ephesus. This is the sort of prayers that he's praying. Chapter 1, verses 18 and 19. He says this, I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened. Okay, so good. So far, so good. In order that, I wonder what he's going to say. Is it so that they have a comfortable life, an easy existence? They're not going to be persecuted, perhaps. That things will go well for them, that they'll be healthy and they'll live long lives. Don't pray any of that. That your hearts may be enlightened in order that you may know the hope to which he has called you, the riches of his glorious inheritance in his holy people, and the incomparably great power for us who believe. When I read that, I'm like, man, first of all, my prayers are a little bit substandard. Maybe I'm missing the point to this partnership with God. And secondly, he's praying this is the priority for him in this community, for this community to be walking with God. This is what his prayer is for them, that they'd know that hope that he's called us to, that whether we live or whether we die, we have a hope that goes beyond the temporal carnality of this life. That we'd know the glorious riches of his inheritance, that he's achieved for us on the cross and through rising from the grave. And that also that they would know that incomparably great power, which goes on to say the same power that raised Jesus from the dead. Even as I'm saying it, this is like so familiar language that we lose its magnitude. The same power that was victorious over death itself is at work in you and is at work in me. That's the sort of prayer that Paul is praying. And so I've been really challenged by this. And I know when I put my kids to sleep, that sounds terrible. When we put them to bed for them to go to sleep, I end up just like drifted into this same sort of, that heaping up empty phrases like the Gentiles do as Jesus writes. It's kind of the same as that, Lord, help them to sleep well so I don't get disturbed. Help them to not be disturbed through the night so I can have a good sleep. Help them to go through till 7 o'clock because I know I need that many hours away from you. I felt like I could do better. And so I'm starting to think about, well, what is God saying in this moment? What would it mean for heaven and earth to collide for these next 10 hours or whatever they're asleep for? And so I start praying, God, may they know your love for them. Simple, but it's another level. Lord, that they might know kind of the length and the breadth and the wonder of who you are, even as they sleep. That, Lord, they would know you just as we as a family know you, as our ancestors have known you, as the stories of the Bible would show this closeness with God. May they know you in that way. And so starting to just elevate our prayers a little bit in that way is something I've been really challenged with just recently. And so here's the application. What are you saying please for? And I wonder whether there can be a step change to kind of elevate your prayers, to consider what God might be saying for the people that you are praying for. So as we wrap up, I wonder for you which of this little acronym you might like to work on this week. Is it adoration? Creating those close encounters with God, to meditate with him, to contemplate him, and to commune with him. Maybe it's to be a little bit more thankful, to have that attitude of gratitude through and through your life, to be truly grateful for the God who has first loved us and given himself for us. Maybe it's opening up some of those spaces that are a bit dusty, a little bit untidy, that we need to bring into the light. Or maybe it's elevating our please prayers to pray a little bit more like Paul. We're going to be exploring that one a little bit more in future weeks. As we close today, I want to set you a little bit of homework. I'd love you to go back to that famous prayer of Jesus, the Lord's Prayer. Read it in your version, read it in maybe a few different versions, and see which lines have taken on new meaning, new relevance for you today. And maybe carve out that time to maybe write, to journal, to think through, to pray around what has really resonated with you today. Thanks again so much for joining with us today. God bless you in your week ahead.
Hello, my name's Naomi. It's been great to have you with us for our message here at Renewal. If you want to find out more about what it means to follow Jesus, you can visit renewalcc.com/next steps, and you'll be sent a few videos which might answer some of those bigger questions that you might have. Likewise, maybe you just want to say hello to the team, so you can email hello@renewalcc.com. And then if you're really enjoying all of these videos, what you can do is click the subscribe button, which is the wonderful red button that you cannot miss on your screen, to be notified of any other videos that come in. You can also listen to our messages on the go. So if you visit renewalcc.com/media, you'll be able to see podcasts, and then that will also link you to the YouTube channel. But maybe actually you just want to support the work that Renewal is doing. And you can do that by visiting renewalcc.com/give, and you can choose where your finance goes. All that's left to say is take care, God bless, and have a great week. Hopefully we'll see you soon.